Hello, and thank you for allowing me to present to you Louisiana Student Standards for Science. This presentation was compiled with information gathered from the Louisiana Department of Ed website, Kane Center Teacher Leader Presentation, and background development process from LaTrenda Knighton, who is an East Baton Rouge Parish School System Specialist who served on their committee. The following information is what I found to be most engaging and appropriate to support teacher comprehension of the Louisiana Student Standards for Science. The goals of this presentation is to increase your understanding of the new Louisiana Student Standards for Science, to look at the origination, GLEs versus Louisiana Student Standards for Science, detail, review, and activities of the Louisiana Student Standards for Science documents, discuss the instructional shift, discuss the state's next steps, participate in a sample lesson, and identify lesson components, and to allow teachers to plan for their first semester. Icebreaker. Turn and talk. As a student and as a teacher, think about your most memorable science experience. New standard development process. History and current status. Historical timeline. 1997, Louisiana adopts science standards. 2005, Louisiana writes GLEs based on 1997 standards. Changes had to be made. Louisiana was lagging behind. Only two states currently use standards that were older than Louisiana, New Mexico and Wisconsin. Louisiana ranks 45th on the 2011 NAEP Science Assessment. Betsy Bulletin 741-2301 states the Louisiana content standards shall be subject to review and revision to maintain rigor and high expectations for teaching and learning. Such review of each content area shall occur at least once every 7 years. According to the Brookings Institute, 20% of all jobs require STEM knowledge. Once reviewed, Louisiana science GLEs lack math, technology, and engineering integration. Review process, overview timeline. A 40-member standard committee oversaw the 2017 review of science standards. The committee oversaw and coordinated the review process pursuant to Betsy, monitored progress, ensured alignment across grade levels and subjects, and made final recommendations to Betsy. You should have a folder with the old GLEs and the new Louisiana Student Standards for Science. Let's take a look. You're going to examine the two sets of standards at your table. Turn and talk to a partner and discuss your first impressions, what's the same and what's different. Quality standards provide focus on fewer topics with more opportunities for students to engage deeply. Looking at kindergarten, there were previously 32 GLEs. Now, with the Louisiana Student Standards for Science, there are now only 10. With third grade, there were 62 GLEs. Now there are only 15 Louisiana Student Standards for Science. As you can see, the state has drastically reduced the number of GLEs or standards to help support the need of student learning. Louisiana Student Standards for Science, cake analogy. The performance expectations is like baking a cake. Your practices are the baking tools and the techniques used to bake the cake. You have the core ideas, which consist of the cake, and then you have the cross-cutting concepts that serves as the frosting. The framework consists of three dimensions: science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, cross-cutting concepts. All three dimensions are embedded or intertwined within the performance expectations. Notice that if you mix the colors blue, orange, and green, you would get brown. Dissecting the coding. Louisiana borrowed from the next generational science standards to develop their science curriculum. When you type in these descriptor codes to search for activities, you should see a lot of activities to help support your teaching. Looking at the code, you have first start off with the grade level. In this case, it's grade level 8. Then you start off with the school area, whether it be elementary, middle, or high school. Then you have the domains, which can consist of physical science, life science, earth science, or any of the high school concepts. Next, you have the topic number and the performance expectation. The grade bands consist of K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12th grade. Framework of Louisiana Student Standards for Science. Coding and descriptor. You have your performance expectation, states what students should be able to do to demonstrate that they have met the standard. Performance expectations are built on the foundation of the science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and cross-cutting concepts. You have your clarification statements that provide examples or additional clarification on the performance expectation. Next, you have your three-dimensional performance expectations that consist of science and engineering practices that give a detailed behavior that students should engage in that mimic those of scientists and engineers. You have disciplinary core ideas that describe the most essential ideas, the content, in the major science discipline. Last, you have the cross-cutting concepts. Those are ideas that have applications across all areas. Science and engineering practices. What can we do as teachers? In the area of ask questions, define problems, we can develop questioning strategies, teach students how to refine questions, teach students to recognize good science questions, such as if they're testable. 2, in the area of developing and using models, we can have students develop models by drawing, give a demonstration, and have students draw part of it in an anchor chart. Planning and carrying out investigations. We can model, then allow students to the independence in investigation. In the area of analyzing and interpreting data, we can review, create various graphs and tables. Using mathematics and computational thinking, we can discuss quantities and units on day 1, use rulers, protractors, thermometers, example units, gather data and organize on a spreadsheet, math relationships with words that then become symbols. In the area of constructing explanations of sciences and designing solutions in engineering, we can have students write claims, explanations, reasonings, problems, and solutions. In the area of engaging in argument from evidence, we can pose questions for students to think about. Students construct an argument or guess, use evidence to support their position on the topic, critique other arguments. In the area of obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information, we can provide explicit instructions with science text, give reading strategies such as close reading, making predictions, and visualizing. Can have students to communicate their learning in their science notebook, poster, or in presentation. More information can be found in this YouTube video below. Disciplinary core ideas. In physical science, you have PS1, which is matter and its interaction, PS2, which is motion and stability, forces in motion, PS3, which is energy, PS4, which is waves and their application and technologies for information transfer. In life science, you have LS1, from molecules to organisms, structures and processes. LS2, ecosystems, interactions, energy, and dynamics. LS3, hereditary, inheritance and variations of traits. LS4, biological evolution, unity and diversity. In earth and space science, you have ESS1, Earth place in the universe, ESS2, Earth systems, ESS3, Earth and human activity. In the area of engineering, technology, and application of science, we have ETS1, which is the engineering design, ETS2, which is links among engineering, technology, science, and society. Cross-cutting concepts. Determine which of the cross-cutting concepts correlate to the given performance expectation. You're going to pull the following stations from the various websites. For the first link, you have the sheets that are going to go out on the tables for each station. There are a total of 7 stations. The teachers will go to each station with their handout here to identify whether or not the activities or the sheets on the table closely relate to patterns, cause and effect, scale, proportion and quantity, systems and system models, energy and matter, structure and function, stability and change. Take time to match your stations now. These are following examples within the content. In elementary, you'll see what the state requires for motion and stability, forces and interaction for 3 PS2 1. For middle school, you'll see what the state requires for motion and stability, forces and interactions, 6 middle school PS2 through 5. The performance expectations integrate the science and engineering practices that is in bold print. However, instruction may be pulled from any of the non-bold items. Each disciplinary core idea has a code descriptor made up of letters and a number. The letters represent the domain and the number represents the topic. Matching activity. Science instruction, past versus present. What you're going to do is you're going to take this matching activity, maybe put it on a Word document and blow it out up and cut the strips and allow teachers to match the past science instruction with the Louisiana Student Standards science instruction. Now, after this, the teachers will turn and talk. Did you match them all correctly? 2, discuss what's different. How will your instruction change? 3, what are some areas that are the same? What do you currently do that models this type of instruction? Instructional shifts. Now we see how our instruction should shift. The Louisiana Student Standards for Science represents the knowledge and skills needed for students to successfully transition to post-secondary education and the workplace. The standards call for students to apply content knowledge to explain real-world phenomena and to design solutions. It demonstrates the practices of scientists and engineers. It connects scientific learning to all disciplines of science. It expresses ideas grounded in scientific. Video sample, what do you see? From the teaching channel titled Energy and Matter Across Science Disciplines, you will have the teachers answer the following questions. 1, how does Ms. Shelton make the cross-cutting concepts explicit in her classroom? 2, what about this classroom looks different from a traditional lab experience? What evidence can you see of how this shift impacts student learning? And 3, how does Ms. Shelton empower her students to lead their own learning? State next steps. You may go online to do a search of the state's connectors to ELA and math standard. This document tells science teachers how ELA and math can connect to the standards. This document was released April 2017. You have your key shifts and instructional implications. This particular document was also released in April 2017. There is an example of a middle school sample transition plan that was released in June 2017, and you have your learning progression chart that is also available on the Louisiana Department of Ed that shows students how they should be moving within the grade band in each area of your Louisiana Student Standard for Science document. The sample scope and sequence documents has not yet been released but plans to be released in August 2017. Assessment. Previous RFP secured vendor for assessment development will release a field test for grades 3 through 8 spring 2018. There will be an operational test in spring 2019. The platform will be the same as ELA, Math, Social Studies, and EAGLE. EAGLE Assessment Tool. Teacher leader advisors who will help create sample assessment items hired in April and May 2017 and trained during the summer. EAGLE items created throughout 2017 and 2018 school year will also be released. Now we'll take a 15-minute brain break. Don't talk about the standards, truly take a brain break. Use the restroom, meet someone new, don't be shy. Sample lesson. Children don't remember a lot of what you'd say, but what you do. My favorite science teacher was Mrs. Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. She often encouraged students to take chances, get messy, make mistakes. Students were the experts. Students used resources. She gave them anticipation by the dress she wore each day that dealt with the content that they would learn. She allowed them to explore. She gave them real world experiences, and she did not teach, she always assessed. This is where I feel Louisiana is heading with the Louisiana Student Standards for Science. Now we will explore the Better Lesson website. We were told from the Kane Center presenters that you can type in the descriptor code and find activities. Better Lesson was one of the best websites I found in doing so. There are tons of lessons created to support the 5E model. It allows teachers to browse through this area. Looking at a sample lesson pulled from Better Lesson. Does it push or pull? Third grade level. This is a sample lesson from Better Lesson website. Example of following the Madeline Hunter lesson structure. Instructional specialists or school leaders may model this lesson just to show a sample science lesson structure in a timely manner. You have your big idea, which is all forces have something in common. They either push or pull. You have the standards noted. You have your objective, do now, I do, we do, you do, and your closure. Lesson variation and common pieces. When looking at a lesson, you should have common areas such as the suggested lesson format for your school example, reading piece that serve as informational text from read works to read and ask questions, sample tasks. We're still waiting on the state to release a few items, but you may do a Google search for sample task items in the specific content area. You should have a do now or jumpstart that's leap-like or has prerequisite skills. You should always have anchor charts to support visual learners, discussions, and referral tools. You also need a lab activity. You should have an assessment, pre-lesson, mid-lesson, and at the end of week. Also, you should have a closure or exit ticket. This can review a concept, serve as writing, or checking for understanding. Adding resources or activities to your lesson. You should currently have your school resources and kits and your curriculum documents. You may add resources from Better Lessons, CK12, YouTube videos, Google search, tasks from the PALS website, Louisiana Department Ed, or Eagle items once posted. These are all resources that our district found were important to use. Now it's time to plan. Divide into groups of grade levels K through 5, 6 through 8. Review your school template or state release items with Better Lesson website or any other shared website. Select 2 to 3 lessons that can be used during your first semester to give you a head start. Contact information. Again, my name is Lantaris Williams. Thank you for watching the PowerPoint on Louisiana Student Standards for Science. I can be reached at lontarrisw@gmail.com. Thanks again.